Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're tackling a financial hurdle that trips up, honestly, some of the most responsible people out there. Picture this, you decide you're going to do the right thing, right? You start saving every month, you move $100 here, $200 there into your savings account, and you feel great about it. You're being disciplined, but then you open your banking app one day and notice something kind of weird. You've got a solid 10 grand sitting there, but it's earning something crazy low, like 0.5% in interest, which means after an entire year of doing everything right, you've made 50 bucks. Meanwhile, everywhere you look, people keep talking about investing, index funds, and compound growth. And suddenly it hits you, and you're thinking, wait, am I doing this wrong? Look, if you have ever had this exact internal monologue, you are definitely not alone. It turns out, while saving money is absolutely the foundation of financial health, relying on it alone, it rarely builds real wealth. This is literally the exact spot where so many people just get stuck. We know saving is crucial, but making that leap into investing without feeling totally overwhelmed, that's the tricky part. Because the root of the problem really just comes down to this tiny little number, 0.5%. That typical, minuscule interest rate highlights exactly why a traditional savings account just totally fails as a wealth-building tool. When your money is just sitting there, earning fractions of a percent, it is barely inching along. Sure, it might be safe, but fundamentally, it's just standing still instead of actually working for you. So let's get into Section 1, the saving paradox, and why saving simply isn't enough. The stark reality we have to face is that savings protect your money, but investments grow it. Let's look at the undeniable math for a second. If you save $10,000 at a typical 1% interest rate, that money barely moves, growing to just over $12,200 over 20 years. But if we look historically, the stock market has returned about 10% per year on average over long periods. So if that same 10 grand earned 10% annually, after 20 years, you're looking at roughly $67,000. I mean, it's the exact same starting money, but a completely different outcome. The biggest wealth gap isn't usually between people who save and people who spend. It's between people who save and people who invest. Okay, so if the math is that obvious, why doesn't everyone just do it? Let's move to Section 2, Math versus Psychology, and how to overcome the fear. You see, the barrier stopping most of us isn't the math at all. It's an emotional tug of war. Saving just feels inherently safe, doesn't it? When your money sits in a bank account, it doesn't fluctuate, it doesn't randomly drop 5% on a Tuesday afternoon. But investments, well, they move. Sometimes they go up, and yeah, sometimes they go down. And that emotional volatility can be absolutely terrifying, which is exactly why this transition from saving to investing just can't happen all at once. It has to happen in stages. And that brings us to Section 3, the step-by-step path. Let's look at a roadmap to wealth. Here is our actionable, low-anxiety framework designed to completely bypass that psychological fear. It really comes down to 5 simple steps. 1. Build an emergency fund. 2. Create mental buckets. 3. Start small. 4. Simple investments. And 5. Stay disciplined. Let's go ahead and break these down one by one. All right, step 1 is totally non-negotiable. Before you invest a single dollar, you need a real emergency fund. We're talking 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in cash. This money stays in savings. It is strictly for unexpected problems. A job loss, a medical emergency, a major car repair. Why is this absolutely crucial? Because the biggest reason people panic sell their investments at the wrong time is simply because life happens and they suddenly need cash immediately. Think of it this way. An emergency fund protects your investments from your own life. Now, once that emergency fund is set, step 2 reveals a really fascinating psychological trick: creating mental buckets. Bucket 1 is your safety money. This includes that emergency fund we just talked about, and it does not move. But bucket 2, that's your growth money. This is the money you're actually investing. By simply giving this second bucket permission to fluctuate up and down and accepting that its job is to move because its ultimate goal is long-term growth, it is honestly amazing how much financial anxiety just melts away. Moving on to step 3, start small. A lot of beginners think they need, thousands of dollars to start investing, but you absolutely don't. You don't need a Wall Street bonus to begin. A lot of platforms today let you start with just 50 or $100. The goal right now isn't to buy a yacht or make some massive profit out of the gate. It's simply to build the crucial habit of investing. Which brings us to step 4, keep it simple. Beginners so often make the mistake of jumping straight into really complicated strategies like day trading or options or crypto speculation. You want to avoid that trap for sure. Instead, lean on simple, diversified index funds.
These basically track the overall stock market, which naturally lowers your risk. Even legendary investor Warren Buffett has repeatedly recommended low-cost index funds for most investors. It's boring, yes, but man, it works.
Once you're all set up, we arrive at step 5, staying disciplined. And this brings us right into section 4, the magic of compounding, and why boring is powerful.
To really see why discipline matters so much, let's look at this breakdown. Let's say you invest $300 a month at an 8% average return for 25 years. You'd end up with roughly $285,000. But check out the slices here. That first slice is your actual out-of-pocket contribution, just $90,000. That second slice? That's almost $195,000 of pure investment growth. No way, right? That is compounding doing the heavy lifting, literally turning a small, boring monthly habit into massive growth over time.
But hey, the journey isn't always going to be perfectly smooth. So let's look at section 5, surviving market crashes and changing your perspective.
You know, when the news headlines get dramatic, the red arrows start flashing on TV, and the market drops. That's when psychology matters more than ever. It really helps to remember that market crashes are perfectly normal. They've happened dozens of times throughout history. In fact, long-term investors actually benefit from them. When the market drops, your consistent monthly investments are suddenly buying more shares at a massive discount. It's kind of like your favorite index fund just went on sale. Experienced investors stay calm because they're thinking in decades, not days.
A really great way to think about everything we've covered in this explainer is this. Saving money is like storing seeds in a glass jar. They're perfectly protected, sure, but nothing is ever going to grow in there. Investing, on the other hand, is taking those same seeds and actually planting them in the messy soil. There are going to be storms and bad weather, for sure, but over time, they grow into a harvest that is so much bigger than those original seeds. Simply put, saving gives you stability, but investing gives you actual financial freedom. And the earlier you combine both that stability and that freedom, the more powerful your financial future becomes. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to reflect on today. Take a real look at your own habits right now. Are you currently still in the saving stage, just protecting your seeds in a jar? Or have you already taken that brave next step and started investing, planting those seeds in the soil? Think about where you are on this step-by-step path and what small action you can take today to move forward. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.